Hi, everyone, and welcome to Studio Jake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. This is your vlog, your web show for pop culture, comic books, movies, film, music, all kinds of stuff. Be sure to subscribe and ring that little bell. YouTube is doing this weird curating thing with your subscription feed, so you're not actually seeing things in chronological order. So ring that little bell so you don't miss a single episode, because today I've got a very special guest. I've had her on before. She is, you've seen her on TheBlaze and on other television projects. She covers the UFC and concerts and award shows and all kinds of events. Of course, it is Hilary Kennedy. Hilary, thank you so much for coming back.
Hey, Jake, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me back.
And Hilary, for those of you who don't know, Hilary is probably one of the classiest people I ever have on. She's incredibly easy to work with and to set up, and she's always on time. I have a lot of guests who are late. She is always this is the second time in a row she's been punctual, so I really appreciate about that about her. So thank you again. But now. Last week, of course, was the Oscars. We kind of had a surprise win, I thought, in the Green Book. I personally thought BlacKkKlansman was going to win because Hollywood has this thing where they say it's people's turn. Like, I remember they said that when Leonardo DiCaprio won Best Actor for The Revenant, people were saying, oh, well, that movie probably wasn't, he didn't really deserve it for that movie, but he deserved it for other movies, and so it's his turn to win. And that was kind of the vibe I was getting from the Oscars, especially with all the buzz about BlacKkKlansman, that it was Spike Lee's turn to win.
Right.
And of course, it didn't work out, and he stormed out of the Academy Awards and said something to Jordan Peele that we don't know what was. But I'm just curious, like, I haven't seen Green Book yet. To me, the trailers look just kind of like an updated version of Driving Miss Daisy. So I'm a little curious, did you see it, and did you think it deserved the win?
So I didn't see the film. I read a ton about it beforehand, and quite frankly, I'd seen Driving Miss Daisy. But you're right, like, that was kind of what I thought too, is it just sort of seemed like a repeat of that. However, even though it was a huge surprise that the Academy chose this film, what I thought was interesting is, even there's a lot of controversy about if it should have won, if it's glossing over race relations and presenting this idealistic world that doesn't really exist. You know, a lot of people were really mad that it won because they felt like it was pandering to certain groups and whatever. But I think a lot of the people really liked this movie because it was essentially a feel-good movie. I mean, it was a movie about love and respect and finding commonality despite our differences. And after reading about all the controversy behind it, it really did make me want to see it now, because the people who saw it, even the people who were critics of it winning Best Picture, the people who saw it said, I couldn't not like it. It was a likable movie. I just didn't think it deserved to win. But most people that saw it really did like it and said, you know what, I walked away feeling better about the world. And sometimes we just need that. They can't all be these gritty, dark, ultra realistic films all the time, because quite frankly, a lot of the films that win Best Picture are total downers. And with the way things are in our society right now, and just how heated everybody is about politics and race relations, sometimes you need those feel-good movies. You know, you want to, if you're going to spend money on a movie ticket, because quite frankly, movie tickets have gotten really expensive, sometimes you want to walk away just feeling better about the human race. And so by all accounts, Green Book is supposed to be that film.
And that's what I actually read a little bit of a similar defense, because people were saying it was the worst Best Picture since Crash. And I read a piece of a guy saying, no, that's not the case at all. Well, he actually said, I didn't think any of the films on the Best Picture list deserved Best Picture. He said, I didn't think it was the worst pick. He said, I think that and he basically said what you were saying, that it's still a good feel-good film. It makes you feel good when you walk away from it, and whatnot. So yeah, I definitely see what you're saying, and I'm a little curious, because I always said that. Now, I'm a fanboy, so I jokingly say that Avengers: Infinity War should have won Best Picture, but in my heart of hearts, I know, actually, my humble opinion from the movies I saw, which I'm a cinephile, so I've seen watch a ton of movies. I kind of felt like A Quiet Place was the Best Picture from last year.
I loved that movie.
There you go. And I'm just curious, did you think that there was a picture in or a film in the Best Picture list from this year, or a different film that you think should have won?
Well, I loved Bohemian Rhapsody. So I was already a big fan of Queen to begin with. So full disclosure, I really like their music. But I thought that was actually a really great film just because Rami Malek did such an incredible job of channeling Freddie Mercury. A lot of people said, it wasn't that great or the editing wasn't that great. I thought it was not only a really accurate portrayal of Freddie Mercury and it paid a nice, it paid a nice compliment to him, to his talent, to his family life. But I just felt like it was also a feel good. I mean, it was a movie where you walked away not feeling down about his life or his career, the way things ended. I just thought it was a really well done film. So I would have been happy to see Bohemian Rhapsody win. I liked Black Panther. I think that's a great movie too. It was a weird year this year because, like you said, I don't know that there was one in particular where people were like, "Ah, yes, like this is the one. This definitely needs to win Best Picture." So that was a little odd this year, and I think that's why people were surprised because it was already kind of an odd list of
Mhm.
nominees to begin with.
Yeah, and I felt like at least last year, they at least had one or two token pick. And I guess
Hmm.
what I mean by that is like that general audiences and critics like, because you definitely see since I feel since 2012, there's been like this divide between what the audience love and what the critics love. And I felt
Yes.
like, and like last year, I felt like Dunkirk and I can't remember the other film, but I felt like those were films that both critics and audience liked, and
Hmm.
so it made sense that it was on the list. It really should have won, at least out of the list that was there. I didn't see Shape of Water, but I've heard. I know my Daily Wire colleague Paul Ball hates it. In fact, I heard him last week before this Oscars. He was talking about how much he didn't like it, but I like Black Panther as well. And as a superhero film fan, I didn't think it was Best Picture. I thought Infinity War was better. But
Hmm.
now, again, I haven't seen Bohemian Rhapsody or Star is Born. So I know that audiences love those two as well. But I
Yeah.
felt like out of the others, it probably should have won because it had if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, highest critic score and not the highest audience score, but certainly higher than some of the others.
Well, and it's interesting too with Roma, which of course Alfonso Cuarón won Best Director, but a lot of people speculated that Roma didn't win because it was a Netflix film,
Yeah, I've
and
heard
that a
that.
lot of the people at the Academy weren't going to vote for a Netflix film. That there's kind of this weirdness about um, it being a Netflix film rather than a wide theatrical release, even though it has, gone to movie theaters now. But that was kind of interesting too, because they said as much as they've moved forward as far as trying to be a little more diverse and there's been this push for being inclusive and all that stuff, that there's still kind of some weirdness or competitiveness or whatever between like the new TV films versus the films that are being shown in theaters so that was kind of interesting, I thought.
And I honestly don't understand that criticism because for the Netflix films, because I feel that they're very hit and miss. So like, but I also feel Hollywood is very hit and miss, and
Yes.
so I'm kind of like to me they're a little bit different than TV films in the sense that TV films are made with there's going to be a commercial break. So if you take
Hmm.
a really good like a Truman with Gary Sinise, even though it's a fantastic film, Gary Sinise is great as Truman, you still kind of feel like, oh, I know this is a TV movie. The production values are a little less, but I feel like
Right.
with Netflix, even with their kind of minimalist films, there's still an attempt to make it a production, a theatrical production. Am I off base there, or what do you think?
No, I think you're right. And I do think that's why people were a little taken by Roma, because even if you just watch the trailer for Roma,
I fell asleep during the trailer.
it's well, and that's truly what a lot of people said was if you didn't see it on the big screen in a theater and you were just trying to watch it at home on Netflix, you were probably not going to make it through the film. It's black and white, it has subtitles. I mean, it's just, it's asking a lot of the average viewer to spend that large amount of time watching the film. But it was shot so beautifully. I mean, cinematically, it's gorgeous. And so I think a lot of people felt like, well, this really raised the bar as far as what a film on Netflix can be. So I mean, it is gorgeous, but it's asking a lot of the audience. I mean, foreign films just in general, you kind of either love them or hate them. But this one in particular, I think really captivated a lot of people who saw it on the big screen when it did have a theatrical release later on. So,
and that's true. And I'm a big fan of Hong Kong films. I love Hong Kong cinema. I think I've heard though that the Hong Kong cinema is changing now that Hong Kong has been absorbed by China. Because if you look at, say, a film like The House of Flying Daggers, which is a very beautiful cinematography film. It's got amazing acting. I didn't care for the ending. The ending left a lot of plot holes, but still just a good film. But it's about a rebel who it's about a battle between rebels who are fighting against an oppressive government, and then and two characters who are kind of caught up in that. And I've heard that since China has reabsorbed Hong Kong, that's changing. And so I imagine with foreign films, with the landscape of how Europe is changing and even South America, I can kind of see how now they're kind of asking more, like you were saying, asking more of the audience, kind of be patient with us.
Right.
But I'm sure that likewise, that'll change over time. Now, now I've heard that the Roma director, his name escapes me, but I heard his previous film was really good, and I haven't seen it yet. So I can't really compare to him like I could, like, say, Guillermo del Toro or someone like that. But I'm sure you're right, and maybe we'll see, especially with, there's rumors that Disney may use Hulu for their dumping site for some of the films that they're inheriting for Fox. So we'll have to wait and see where all that is going to go. Do you think streaming services are going to be impacted by Roma at least getting the nomination for Best Picture?
Boy, I think so. I mean, I think we're going to start seeing films coming from all kinds of sources now, because we live in a world now where streaming is where it's at. I mean, there's nothing like going to the movie theater, don't get me wrong, and having your popcorn, and in my case, Sour Patch Kids and like a Kit Kat, and sitting down and enjoying the film. But we live in such a crazy world. Everyone works so many different hours and has just crazy schedules. And so I think being able to stream a film, whether you're on a flight somewhere or you're sitting at home or, in between classes, if you're a student, I think that people are able to absorb those films in a much different way now, instead of having to wait and drive to the theater. And, because not everybody has time for that. And like I mentioned, it's gotten expensive to go to the movies, and not everybody wants to drop $20 on a movie ticket on a Friday night when they can pay whatever it is for Netflix a month, and see some amazing films at home. So something like Roma really sets the bar high, and I think other people are definitely going to be using streaming services like Netflix and Hulu to get their work out there. And that's exciting. It gives us a lot more choices. I mean, it's really giving the audience a much broader, experience than just having to go to the theater.
And what would you say in is like the gold standard of, would you say, for a streaming film? Because I watched a couple of weeks ago. I watched IO and Polar, and I was just not impressed. IO at least was held by Anthony Mackie's acting, because he's a really good actor. But Polar was a 80s slashers film disguised as an action film, and so I didn't really care for it. So I'm curious. Like, what do you, and like Bright is okay, but it's just like a toy commercial. Like, it's really good, it's really fun, it's really flashy, but then you're kind of like, wow, that world building was a little lazy there. So I'm just curious, do you have a film that you saw like on Hulu or Netflix that you thought, okay, this is good?
I'm trying to think. I mean, some of the documentaries that I've seen have really wowed me, and then some of them I have high expectations for, and I watch them and I'm like, So, like, I don't know if you've seen Abducted in Plain Sight, which was a documentary on Netflix.
Oh, that's on my queue. I haven't watched it yet, but it's actually in my queue.
It's one of the craziest. So I think you'll enjoy it, and also be both shocked and repulsed and confused. But I thought that it was really well done. The Ted Bundy documentary, I felt like left something to be desired. So I do think with some of the documentaries, just the quality, because that's what I gravitate towards more than the fiction films. But I do feel like something like Abducted in Plain Sight, they did it really well. So when it comes to some of them, though, like you said, they're not quite there yet. It's like they know they just need a ton of content, so they're putting some things on the service where you're like, but they might have a beautiful trailer or a really cool premise, but then when you watch the whole film, you're kind of like, well, this wasn't as great as I was expecting.
That was the
So,
problem with I.O. Really great movie trailer, but then it took them forever to get to the premise that the trailer set up. That was
yep,
one of its problems. So
yep.
now, how do you think what the award ceremony was? Because with no host, the ratings were actually a little higher because it
Yes.
was Jimmy Kimmel almost destroyed them, and so then they had no hosts, and of course I won't make you pick on any particular host. That's just for me. So just but I feel like it actually the ratings went up a little bit, and Freddie Mercury, I feel when he won Best Actor, that he gave like a really good speech. Same with Gary Oldman last year when he won for Darkest Hours. And so I'm curious, how do you think, because you've been to a lot of these types of events, how do you think that this Oscars changes the next few?
I think people as a whole really enjoyed this new format with no host. I think it worked really well, honestly. You got great variety having all the different presenters kind of do their piece, which is fun and it was a good mix of people. It was a really diverse group of people. Um, Not just actors, but also singers and entertainers from all walks of life, which I thought was cool. And I think that is why they had like almost 30 million people tune in, because the past couple of years, award ceremonies just haven't been at the top of people's list. I think partly because it just feels like it's kind of the same thing over and over and over, and partly because they have been getting very politically charged. And I think most people, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, are kind of sick of that being thrown in their face when they just want to see who won Best Actor or Best Actress. So I liked this new format. I think it worked. I hope they keep it up, because I feel like it just made the ceremony feel like it moved. You didn't feel like someone was just stuck up there trying to force jokes to work. I just made that. I enjoyed watching it this year because I felt like it actually had like a nice pace to it.
And now, one last question for you. 3 films that you're looking forward to seeing in 2019.
Ooh, gosh. Man. Well, there's one that's already out that I haven't seen yet, and maybe you've seen it, and I have been dying to see it, but it's They Shall Not Grow Old, the film that was
Oh, I saw
compiled out
the
of.
trailer for that. That does look good.
It looks so good, and I know it came out in very limited release at the very end of 2018, and they finally have re-released it in theaters. So that's definitely um, top of my list. And then I wanted to ask you recommendations, because I know there's going to be a lot of superhero movies coming out in 2019. What is the one that you would recommend most? Because since you're a super fan of those movies and I'm a total novice, I would love to know which one you recommend.
Well, I would definitely recommend Avengers Endgame. I feel like a few people are kind of disappointed because they feel like Spider-Man Far From Home is a little bit of a spoiler to it, but I'm still excited for it. I think it's going to be good. They're saying that after these 3 movies, so Captain Marvel, which comes out this weekend or this coming weekend, Avengers Endgame, and Spider-Man Far From Home, they're kind of Marvel is going to take a little bit of a break. So I would definitely say get on board for Avengers Endgame, even if you're not like a Captain Marvel fan or a Spider-Man fan, get on board with that one. Also, I was going to say, I'm actually looking forward to Dark Phoenix. I know a lot of my friends are a little hesitant about it because the first trailer was just awful, but then the second trailer was really good. And I heard Disney, after the buyout of Fox, they're making them recut it. So I'm hoping that maybe because I heard that the kind of the rough cut of it was just unwatchable. But then I heard Disney got a hold of the print and they're like, okay, we can salvage this. So they called the cast back for reshoots. And so I really think maybe it got saved. So those are the 2. And like I said, the only reason I'm recommending X-Men Dark Phoenix is I think maybe it might have been saved on the cutting room floor, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah,
But yeah, there was another film. It's not a superhero film but the name escapes me, so I'll come back to it later. But another one, it's an animated film. They're doing an animated version of Batman Hush, which is one of the greatest comic book storylines in modern comics, not obviously in the past, but modern comics. Batman Hush is coming. It's about a villain who who is mysterious, and he's very simplistic. He doesn't have a lot of gimmicks like, say, the Joker, or the Penguin, or the Riddler. And so it's unusual for Batman to face off with someone like that. So I'm really excited about that. It's going to be, I believe it's going to be standalone, so it's not going to be connected to any of the other animated films that came out, like Reign of the Supermen. So
that'd be cool.
I'm really excited about that.
Nice. That'll fit. Well, I thought of you when watching the Oscars because I don't know if were a fan of any of the Captain America films, but
Oh, yeah.
Chris Evans, Captain America, I don't know if you saw on Twitter, people were just giving him all kinds of props because when Regina King won her Oscar and she was heading up to the stage, she was tripping over her dress.
Mhm.
And so he stood up, offered his arm, and kind of escorted her to the stairs to help her get up the
really
stairs.
cool.
So nice. Such a good chivalrous moment. And he's actually done that before at another award ceremony for someone else. He's just a really nice guy. So I thought Captain America, both in real life and on the screen, good dude.
I know, and it's really sad that he's retiring from the role because it's going to be really, it's going to be really hard. Oh, if you hear a dog bark, that's my my dog. He doesn't like it when people walk by our door. But anyway, I really appreciate Chris Evans. He's a really good actor, and I'm sad that he's retiring because they're saying Avengers Endgame is going to be the last. So that's another reason to see it. It's the last time to see Chris Evans as Captain America.
Oh, man. Well, and other fun fact, too, if you end up talking about the Oscars at all with friends, and I didn't know this until recently, but Rami Malek, who, of course, I told you I loved in Bohemian Rhapsody, he wasn't the first choice for that role. It turns out their first choice, which I can see it, but it sort of blew my mind, was Sacha Baron Cohen.
Oh.
So Borat was the first choice, which I kind of understand the look and why they went that way. But anyway, the members of the actual band Queen were at odds over whether they thought he was right for the part, which is why he didn't end up getting the role. But anyway, that's just kind of a little fun fact in case you end up talking to anybody about Bohemian Rhapsody.
I honestly can't see that. And like, I saw Sacha Cohen in another film that I thought he's a good actor, but I can't really see him as Freddie Mercury.
I couldn't either. Yeah, so it's kind of a fun little thing I learned. I thought that was interesting.
That is really interesting. But all right, so it's time for the curveball question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So for those of you who aren't familiar with StudioJake, I always ask my guests a curveball question. It's meant to throw them off a little bit. Although last week I interviewed Samantha Sullivan, also of TheBlaze, and
yes, I love
she was
her.
not thrown off at all. She was like, "Oh, I know the answer to this." So,
she's so good.
Oh yeah. So I'll have to see if I can throw Hilary off. So Hilary, if you had been at the Oscars and you had been a presenter, what film would you like to have presented the award for?
Ooh, which film? Man, I mean, again, it was truly one of my favorite movies of the year. I loved Bohemian Rhapsody, so I would love to have presented Rami Malek with Best Actor or that with Best Picture, because I just thought it was a fun, and it dealt with some serious subject matter, but it was a fun movie, and you could just feel the energy when you watched that film. So I would love to have been in some way, shape, or form, even if I'd just been watching someone get the award for it. I think that would have been awesome. Or introducing Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. They sang the song Shallow from A Star is Born, and I'm sure you saw the clips of it. They had this like very intense moment, never been speculating about whether they're involved or whatever. That would have been fun to introduce them to, because that was, in my opinion, that was one of the best moments of the night, because everyone there just, even through the TV screen, could just feel their like passion and energy. So I felt like that would have been a cool moment at the Oscars to be a part of too.
Well, that's really cool. And I have your Instagram up here. It's at Hilary Kennedy. And remember, it's just one L. And where else can people find you?
You can find me at hillarykennedy.com. I have kind of a little style and fashion and lifestyle blog, but Instagram is usually where I'm at. So thank you very much for the shameless plug. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I always call Hilary the always stylish Hilary Kennedy. That's how I always introduce her, because her Instagram is really great. You can find some great tips on fashion and all kinds of stuff, as well as her website. So definitely check both of those out. In the meantime, be sure to follow me on Twitter at RealJacobAry. My Instagram is also at RealJacobAry. I took off the dots, so it's just at RealJacobAry. My Facebook is author Jacob Airy, and of course my blog is jacobairy.blog, where I do most of my movie reviews are there. I talk about some of my favorite videos that are online and whatnot. And also be sure to head over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or booklocker.com and get your copy of my fantasy novel, The Seven Royals. All good things. It's a fantasy fiction that takes your favorite fairy tale characters like the Brave Woodsman and Prince Charming and Snow White and Rapunzel and a whole bunch of others and puts them back in the realm of fantasy, right where they belong. So definitely pick up your copy today. Hilary, thank you again so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Jake. I hope to be back again soon.
And as always, I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.